Now let's refactor the markup of the sidebar by moving markup of the list into a separate component, as well as individual list items. So all this markup is currently located inside playlist lesson component. I'm going to open up this component in the editor. Here let's find the markup of the list and extract it into a separate component, which I'm going to call lesson list. I'm gonna create new file for this component with the same name and paste markup in here. This component is going to render array of list items, so let's declare this array just like we have declared array of playlists. Within playlist create component, I'm gonna take this code from this component, paste it into lesson list component, but instead of rendering array of playlists, we're going to render array of lessons. I have already gathered all required information of lessons, so I'm gonna paste it into this array, and then let's extract markup of individual list item and use list item component instead. So we're gonna have to create new file with this component, paste markup of individual list item right here as always. I'm going to quickly fix formatting in this file, and now let's get back to lesson list component and properly render lesson list item components in the loop. Let's use v4 directive and iterate over array of lessons. As a key, we're going to use the number of a lesson, and let's pass the lesson object further into lesson item component as a lesson prop. And just because lesson list item component is supposed to take one prop with the name lesson, I'm going to copy over declaration of the prop from another component, paste it into lesson list item component, but instead of using playlist prop, we're gonna call it lesson in here. And let's properly modify the type for this lesson object. It is going to contain number property, title property, as well as duration. Let's remove the text property from here. And now we're gonna have to interpolate values from this object into the markup. Right here, we're gonna reference title property. Down here, let's show duration of a lesson. And right before the title property, we're also going to show the number of a lesson. Let's also put dot right here. In tree of components, we're seeing that every list item is represented by individual lesson list item component, just like we expect to. Now let's get back to the editor and make this link dynamic, since it is supposed to have two dynamic segments. And just to obtain those dynamic segments, let's do the following. I'm gonna declare playlist /constant just to grab the identifier of the playlist from the current route. We can do so by calling useRoute composable function, which gives us information about current route. And then if we're gonna reference params object, we can extract information about dynamic segments of the route. In this case, we are referencing dynamic segment with the name playlist /, just like we called this segment in the folder structure right here. Alright, and as for lesson identifier, I'm going to take it from the lesson prop, particularly from title field. Let's make all letters in this title lowercase, and then just to turn it into /, I'm going to basically replace all spaces with dashes, like this. So now we have all information necessary to build up address of this link. Let's just inject those individual segments into this address like so. First one would be playlist /, and the second segment will be lesson /. And just like before, when we're gonna navigate around lessons, we will notice that second dynamic segment in the address bar changes. Unlike first segment, which corresponds to the identifier of the playlist, and to make it dynamic as well, we're gonna have to open up playlist grid item component. In here, let's accept props into props object and extract playlist slug from the title property of the playlist prop. Just like we did for lesson slug, we're also going to lowercase all letters in the title and replace spaces with dashes to turn this title into slug. And the only thing left to do is to interpolate this playlist slug variable into this address, like so. And after this, depending on which playlist card we're going to click on, we're also going to get different playlist slug in the address bar. And after opening up particular playlist, we can continue switching between lesson pages. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description.